What is going on, everybody? It's been some time and I've extensively tested the ROG Ally, but not only that, in my time off, even while downloading a huge title or just waiting for an update on the ROG Ally, because of its sheer power, I've been using it extensively over the Steam Deck, and I've kind of been ignoring my Steam Deck, but for very good reasons. The first one is the 1080p screen. The screen just makes playing even older games feel new and refreshing, while on the Steam Deck, I feel like newer games feel older with this grimy 720p screen. If you're going to buy the deck HD for $100 on top of a 2TB M.2, you may as well just get an Ally because it comes with a 1080p screen and a 500GB internal space. But the 1080p screen's at 120 Hz, and that just makes playing games feel mind-boggling. Playing a title like Resident Evil 2 Remake at 80 FPS on the 1080p screen, I'm not gonna lie, it was the best experience I've had with any handheld device, and it was also terrifying. And if you're going to be honest with yourself and ask yourself a question, it should be, if you got the ROG Ally first, would you still get a Steam Deck knowing that the screen and the hardware in general is just a downgrade? Because honestly, even after having the Steam Deck for a year and doing all of this work and buying all of these memory cards for it, I have 7 devoted SD cards for my Steam Deck, one of which I'm now using for the ROG Ally. And that's kind of showing my swaying loyalty a bit. But I've spent about $500 to $600 on accessories for the Steam Deck alone. So saying that I ignore my Steam Deck for this isn't just something I put out. I'm simply saying I ignore my Steam Deck because I do. The only reason I'm turning the system on is to see which games I need to install in the ROG Ally. It's like making somebody watch you cheat on them or something. It just feels wrong. But I do it anyway because I need to see my collections and I have all of my lists on my Steam Deck. I'm still impressed by the Steam Deck's hardware, don't get me wrong. But if I got the ROG Ally first, I don't think I would have bought the Steam Deck. I would have thought the screen is worse, the hardware is worse, and it's so big compared to the ROG Ally. And that leads me to the second reason. Its form factor and weight is just so much better to just pick up and play. It's so light considering everything it can do. It's stylish and just a pleasure to look at and hold. While the Steam Deck is big and bulky and kind of looks similar to a Neo Geo Pocket or Nomad Sega handheld, it's sort of unwieldy and looks like you're working for the military. In fact, a lot of military use the Steam Deck, maybe because it looks like it's meant to be there. I don't know. But the Ally is perfectly wieldy. I think it's the perfect size, essentially, for what it can do. And the fact that it has a 1080p screen, I need a 7-inch on the device. If it was smaller than 7 inches, the 1080p would almost be meaningless. And considering the size of my hands, the controls are perfect size and form factor. And the buttons are just easy to reach and customize. And just the ease of use of this system is almost unparalleled. I think the Steam Deck is easier to use, but you can do less stuff on it. So if I were comparing the two, if you were to give me something that's easier to use but I can do less stuff with, I mean, let's say you give me a Nintendo Switch and tell me it's easier to use, but I can't play as many games on it and I can't do as many stuff that I could do on the Steam Deck. And now people are coming up with the same lousy reason for the Steam Deck saying, but it's easier to use. I'm like, that's not the reason why I stopped using a Nintendo Switch for the Steam Deck. It's the fact that I can do more things. If I don't move on to the ROG Ally because, oh, the Steam Deck is easier to use, then that just makes me a hypocrite. I feel like there's a lot of people out there that don't realize that they're being hypocritical when saying that the Steam Deck's easier to use, therefore you should use it. No, those are the same people that are saying that you shouldn't get a Nintendo Switch over a Steam Deck. Doesn't make any sense. The Steam Deck is vastly harder to use than a Nintendo Switch, especially in its first 6 months. It took a long time for it to be even relatively stable in terms of console-like experience. So saying that I should just ditch the ROG Ally because the Steam Deck is easy to use, who do you think you're talking to? I'm a PC gamer at heart. I don't really care about ease of use. I can do anything. The only advice I give people if they're having a hard time with the ROG Ally, get smarter, find out how to fix it, because that's what I had to do for the Steam Deck. And the device ended up being perfect. until the next SteamOS messed up everything and I have to reinstall all of my plugins and customize everything else accordingly. And in general, most people just use Windows. So if you want to introduce something, I think introducing an OS that people are familiar with opposed to one that they're not would probably get their attention. Now, I remember recommending the Steam Deck to my little brother, and the first thing he asked was, what operating system does it use? And I told him Linux, but you can go into a gaming mode that makes everything simpler. Well, not everything. And then I went on to say how I came up with several fixes that ultimately swayed him from the idea of getting a Steam Deck. I tried to pitch it to people and they just weren't buying it. Literally. But with the ROG Ally, all I had to do was just show the fact that it used Windows and it can play Diablo 4, Destiny 2, or any other mainstream multiplayer title that they wanted to play on the Steam Deck but couldn't, or could play with a workaround. The fact that the ROG Ally just boots up and plays anything is the ultimate appealing factor. Saying that it's easier to use than the Steam Deck is a lie, but saying the Steam Deck is easier to use than the Nintendo Switch is also a lie, so that leads me to think, what is the true appealing factor of these handheld PCs? And realistically, it's how well you can work around your problem and the amount that you can do. And so far, I've turned my ROG Ally into an Xbox 360, original Xbox, and a third-party game beast. I've been playing Sonic Unleashed at 60 FPS, Metal Gear Solid 4. These are emulated games that I couldn't get to work on my gaming laptop correctly, and I'm able to play it on the ROG Ally. Now, there are some fixes for it, but generally speaking, every 360 game I've tested, like Dead or Alive 4 or Ninja Gaiden 2, have all played exceptionally well, if not perfect. But it's the matter of getting your game not to crash at specific moments, and that's more of an emulator issue and not the ROG Ally's fault. I recently finished Kirby and the Forgotten Land with my girlfriend, and I've been trying to beat that game emulated on the Steam Deck for a pretty long time, but with the ROG Ally's processing power alone, it was able to emulate Kirby and the Forgotten Land at a pretty much locked 60 FPS to completion. And yeah, that game is actually very good. I really like Kirby and the Forgotten Land. That last boss was insane. Strictly with hardware, the Ally has it and will provide it to whatever you want. So I think the whole, is it easier to use than the Steam Deck conversation is redundant, because if you can do a lot more things, of course it's not going to be easier to use than something so simple in comparison like the Steam Deck. On the Steam Deck, I can't even play most of my third-party games that I wanted to. I've tried over 50 titles. After that number, I just quit. Linux, in my opinion, is just not ready to do everything that Windows can, but it is ready to provide a more simplistic and seamless experience, of course. But I think anything could pretty much provide a streamlined, simple experience if you simplify it enough. Of course, you can simplify Windows to do all of these great things, but you're not going to be able to play Forza Horizon 4 properly because you're not in desktop mode. And that leads me to the next reason. Armoury Crate is pretty much gaming mode, but just layered on top of desktop mode. So instead of waiting to boot into gaming mode, you just press one button and you automatically go into Armoury Crate. That alone, for me, is a system seller. And a lot of people think, oh yeah, but it's essentially desktop mode. Of course it is, because the ROG Ally can afford it to be a part of desktop mode. It has enough RAM, it has enough cores, it just has enough power to make an entire gaming mode a layer on top of Windows. And I highly doubt that the Steam Deck has enough CPU power to make gaming mode just a layer on top of desktop mode. The reason why Steam Deck is actually less easy to use for me is because it takes a while to get into desktop mode. And the fact that it's split up into two completely separate modes, I can see where they thought it was a good thing, but for the most part, for me, for a PC gamer that needs to code a bunch of stuff, mod, and just make sure everything works internally, being locked to gaming mode is kind of a bad thing for me. So yeah, I do find the ease of use conversation very redundant. In terms of being a handheld, in terms of stability, yes, I think the ROG Ally is the most stable Windows device I've ever used. And of course, that's counting the Windows Phone. That phone was a nightmare. But in terms of stability, power saving, performance, the ROG Ally has those elements over Steam Deck in droves. I can't reiterate enough how much more powerful the ROG Ally is, simply because it can do a million more things. And yes, Linux can play older titles better, and it can support older hardware better than Windows. Yes, it can. But in order for Windows to do everything that that it can do, it needs to stay up to date, and sometimes things fall on the wayside. And usually the things that fall off are stuff that we can either emulate or replicate. So it's not a true big loss in terms of incompatibility when it comes to Windows, directly comparing it to everything you can do on it. And third-party applications and games was the main reason I wanted Windows on the Steam Deck, and to ultimately buy an ROG Ally. I've been using an application called ReWast for a long time on Windows. It basically does the same thing that Armoury Crate does with controller configuration, except it forces any device like keyboard, mouse, flight stick, racing wheel, and of course a classic controller to essentially be whatever you want it to be. When playing third-party titles, I highly recommend the ReWast application. If for some reason you're gaming on PC and you haven't heard of it yet, it saved me in multiple instances when trying to play a game outside of Steam. And that's only if you find yourself not wanting to boot up Steam. For me, Steam is a Wi-Fi and system memory hog, so sometimes if I'm downloading something on a browser, I like to close Steam. But because the ROG Ally is capable of so much, while I'm downloading this or that, I like to play third-party games, so ReWast helps a great deal with that. And I'm currently playing Halo Infinite as a third-party game. I already bought the game, but for some reason, Steam doesn't allow me to play Halo Infinite without a Wi-Fi connection. And Steam does this with a lot of games, but playing third-party games solved this issue for me. So I pretty much buy the game, then ditch it and play offline as third-party software. And that eliminates the whole required network check every week or so that Steam pushes on almost every title. And if there's anything that's more transformative, it's third-party games and the fact that they make just picking up and playing the system a reality. While you can say that with Steam Deck, but there are those weekly checks for the network, so sometimes the game, or most of the time, the game is going to tell you that you need a network in order to start this game, especially when taking out the SD card, putting it back in. So this made the ROG Ally vastly more reliable than the Steam Deck to me, because I'm not using the official Steam software while playing these titles. And in terms of cloud saves, I just make save backups, if that's really going to be your argument for the cloud saves. And what if you want to switch between your Steam Deck and ROG Ally? I don't. And honestly, after all these years of gaming, I kind of stopped caring where I am in certain titles. I just want to play something, and if I want to play a specific title on the go, I want to play it right now. So I just purchase the game officially, most likely on sale, and then I just download it and make it so that I play it offline. And I can't do this on Linux. I can only do it on Windows. So I essentially play any game I want anytime without even worrying about that dumb notification telling me that I need an internet connection. And I'm sick of seeing that on the Steam Deck, especially if I want to play demanding titles like Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands, or if you just straight up can't play a title like Halo Infinite truly on the go. Like, you can start up Halo Infinite with an internet connection and then continue to play offline. But if you just want to play another game first and then play Halo Infinite, you can't do that on the Steam Deck. It just doesn't allow you to do that. At least the last time I checked, which is a couple weeks ago. So I just got the duck version of Halo Infinite, and not only can you play it offline whenever you want, but it actually plays better than the official Steam version. So out of any reason in this video, having third-party titles and essentially making them into DS games where you can play anywhere you want without internet connection, however you like, with mods and all, just made the ROG Ally a playground for PC gamers like me. But there is something that's undeniable that the ROG Ally has over the Steam Deck, and I will say that it is a lot better, and there's no denying it. Anybody could try to deny it, but this is undeniably better. It's the fact that you have variable refresh rate on your Ally. I recently played Resident Evil 2 at 1080p max settings, and that time I played it was probably and most likely the most fun I've had with a handheld PC to date. And the VRR made that experience possible. The game was fluctuating between 49 to 52 FPS, but the VRR made the game feel like it was running at 60 FPS just because it was smoothed out. Usually on the Steam Deck, when a game is fluctuating between 35 to 45 FPS or higher, that's when the frame dip becomes noticeable. For this past year of owning the Steam Deck, I feel everything has been relatively smooth except playing a new demanding game, which is most of the time. The ROG Ally takes this problem away. If a game is demanding, VRR usually smooths everything out. If not, Turbo Mode will take care of it. And I can't tell you how much of a relief it is to boot up a demanding title and just have it work out of the box. With a Steam Deck, you would need to do some extensive research to get most of the games in your library to work. I wasn't able to play X-Men Origins Wolverine on the Steam Deck at all because it's just not available in the Steam store, and you need to do something with Wine and DX10 or 9. You need to install it as this third-party thing. It's just so convoluted, and even though I love that game, it just wasn't worth it. What I simply did on the Ally, I connected my hard drive, which I've been using for 7 years. I clicked on play and it just worked because it's Windows. So everything just works. Everything that I've been accustomed to, that I've been used to on my PC, just works on the Ally. And after having all of those hair-pulling moments and actual man tears while trying to customize the Steam Deck and do all these things to get it to a point where it is comparable to Windows, or where the experience can be even close to Windows, to the point I just gave up. Having that turnaround and just mostly having an incredibly smooth first week with this system is an ocean of relief that just washed over me and had me thinking maybe Linux just isn't ready yet. Because you could say that the verification system is helpful, like I even said. But sometimes the verification system just isn't accurate, or it sacrifices too much to the point you feel like you're not even playing on a handheld PC with all of the bells and whistles and freedom that you would have on a Windows handheld. And the Ally is a true powerhouse, that's for damn sure. To me, it has little to no limits. And I've mainly been testing this on the go and about 20% at home. So I have about 2 power banks that I bring with me just to test out turbo mode. And in this week of testing, the Ally has impressed me in nearly every facet of the device. But if I really try to come up with something I don't like about the system, if I dig real hard and just swim and row past all of those incredibly positive experiences and just try to make this video like 99% of the videos on YouTube right now saying it has issues, here's my review. Of course it has issues. It's a review. You're supposed to point out the issues and the positives. I don't know why people are saying issues. I guess because they want to get the Steam Deck fans a little wet, just to get that generic viewability in the video. I would say Windows gave me a few errors here and there. There was one instance where the speakers just weren't registering with the device, and that's after I disconnected my Bluetooth headphones. A 20-second reboot fixed this issue, so all is forgotten. And I was having sort of Wi-Fi connection issues, kind of, with specific applications like Steam and Google Chrome. But I just went to the official ASUS website and went to the ROG Ally drivers, and I reinstalled the Wi-Fi driver. That seems to fix the issue, which is something I usually do when I start up a computer anyway. But I was just giving the device time to adjust before making the assumption that, yeah, I do need to install a new driver. And there was an SD card problem, but it wasn't big by any means. It was just inconsistent download speeds with Steam specifically. Everything else is downloading very well. But to be fair, I think a lot of these issues have to do with Steam. Now, I'm not saying that Steam is sabotaging the ROG Ally and making download speeds for Windows devices, specifically downloading from SD cards, unstable, but I do find it weird that the download speeds on the SD card has become unstable like the Steam Deck was in the first few months of its release, which means that the download speed would jump up to, say, 50 megabits per second, and then it would just drop down to 0. But I think this is because it's decompressing and extracting certain files. So it would download a file, then decompress it, download it again, decompress. And I think they do this on Steam because of the amount of complaints about the Steam Deck and its installing processing after the initial download is done. And so I think it downloads, gives you an estimate of 30 minutes, and then it just stops the download, decompresses. So essentially makes a 30-minute download into like a 2.5-hour download. And that's a bit frustrating. But like I say, I use third-party games for a reason. And on my gaming laptop and desktop PC, I mainly use third-party games because before the Steam Deck came out, I found Steam to be very unreliable. Steam would give me so many issues, especially when downloading games. So that's an issue that Steam has been having for a very long time, at least for me. So this isn't anything new, dealing with long Steam downloads, no matter what kind of internet connection I have, especially when it comes to Windows devices. You would think they would get this to work by now on a Windows device, but downloading the SD SD card slot driver did help a tiny bit. So yeah, I'm mostly just blaming Steam for these issues, but it has been annoying. I mean, I recently downloaded 500 gigabytes of games on the ROG Ally, and that's just like 8 games in 2023. So it essentially took about 6 hours to download all of those, and that's not too bad considering it was 500 gigabytes. So that's pretty much all I had to do to fix those small issues. The Wi-Fi was working on everything, and the SD card was also working out of the box. It's just those small slowdowns that I wanted to see if I could fix. And for the most part, I essentially fixed it. And when dealing with a Windows device, just keep in mind that it is supposed to be this all-encompassing operating system across millions of different devices. So sometimes certain features will fall off and the performance won't be as good as you expect. But it is a problem you can tell ASUS and Microsoft about, and hopefully they will iron these issues out. But the ROG Ally has been the best time I've had with the operating system. Not even my Alienware has had such a smooth experience with Windows. But all of that considered, I just haven't been looking at my Steam Deck the same. I don't have the same glimmer in my eye when I stare at its 720p screen, and right now all I see are the imperfections. But I'll continue to test ROG Ally and check if there are any more imperfections on that system. So far I can't really find anything. Not notable anyway, not anything that would change the way I feel about it. It's still a 9.5 out of 10 for me, and that's officially after the first week. So yeah, if you picked up an ROG Ally, let me know what you think about it. And what do you think about Windows in general? Because I'm always meh about it. It's just something you have to deal with. It's like family. You sort of just have to deal with them for the most part. You grow up with it, and eventually you just master the art of evasion and just fixing issues. So yeah, there's going to be a lot more ROG Ally content to come. I've just been too busy playing the system, and I made that same mistake when playing Steam Deck for the first time. I didn't really make a lot of videos on it, and I should have made more because there's a lot of insight I could have shared and helped people with. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good one. Later.